Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse podcast episode. On today's episode, I am going to be joined by Veena Radhakrishna, and she is the head of software and also the co-founder at Cartesian Kinetics. And very interested to dig into what Cartesian Kinetics is all about. They're bringing robotic solutions to brownfield sites, which I think is very interesting and very intriguing because there are many brownfield sites out there in our industry. So very interested to hear their approach and how they're bringing this to these operations that otherwise might be having to look at new facilities potentially. So, Veena, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me over. Lovely to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to get you on. Happy to learn more about your company and what it is you're doing and the problem that you saw in the industry to create this company. So why don't we kind of start there? Give us a brief overview of Cartesian Kinetics and tell us a little bit about the founding story. How did you come to found this company in the first place?
Sure. So you spoke about brownfield warehouses. So imagine a warehouse that's been operational for many years, and there is this magical transformation that this warehouse has by bringing in Cartesian platform, and and you get 5x of productivity increase. You get far far more efficient operations. You get to scale vertically. You get to have storage density, which is 25% higher. Well, that's what a platform is. It's a Cartesian Kinetics proprietary platform is called Carte Plus, and we help automate running warehouses through an omni-rack robotic platform. And we see this more as a category creation in the sense that we've tried to bring in the best of warehouse automation from and bring that all into one solution for the purpose of brownfield warehouses. And you also asked me how I went about starting this.
Yes.
So this journey of automation and robotics has been many years in the making. I've spent a lot of time in the supply chain industry. I started off my career at Intel, where we looked at combining data from different fabs into one location, used it for planning, scheduling of resources. From then on, have looked at different aspects of automation. I worked in the first mile, where along with my co-founder, we worked in multidisciplinary environments, working with automation systems for parts assembly in the first mile. We worked with different sectors from automotive to FMCG. We're the middle mile where we've done material handling, secondary packaging, worked with industrial robots of different nature. Then in the last mile, the journey was a little different. We built a technology platform for partner-based delivery. It was a complete management platform for onboarding partners, for attacking the problem which we are trying to attack today. How do you do order fulfillment, which is more real time, which is more on demand. And and when we did that, and through the other automation exercises, we realized that we need a more technology solution that is within the warehouse that can actually attack this problem. And that's the genesis of the idea behind Cart Plus. And we help warehouses which handle order fulfillment, handle returns, to evolve and transform into powerhouses that can do this much more efficiently and much more productively.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something that's certainly out there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that from a brownfield perspective and how that kind of lowers barrier to entry a little bit from an automation perspective and just opens up opportunities, I think. And we'll talk a little bit about your view there. But before we kind of get to that and dive a little more into the technology itself, being that you've had experience around this and you've been in the industry for a while, you've seen some things. I mean, I'm curious what is kind of your view on the current state of just warehouse and fulfillment centers in general, specifically in the US and what kind of challenges are they facing and what are you seeing is happening for them?
So the warehousing industry has been super dynamic, and the rate of change over the past 3 to 4 years has been has surpassed the rate of change over the past decade, 2 decades. And what we see changing is that new warehouses are now reducing. There are more brownfield warehouses that are being used, especially post COVID. The uptake of new warehousing has dipped quite a bit. There is occupancy of large warehouses that has gone down. Smaller warehouses are becoming much more popular. The occupancy rates in smaller warehouses is either flat or it's showing an increasing trend. And there is a move towards making these warehouses a lot more efficient. There is a drive towards higher flexibility, smaller footprints, and efficiency in warehouses. And that's what's driving warehousing of late. And since the labor costs are high, there is hence an existential need to automate to kind of meet the productivity requirements and the demand that's placed on these warehouses. And we've seen that automated warehouses tend to be almost 10x as more productive as compared to manual warehouses. And today we see that a lot of these brownfield warehouses that are there are having this gap to and they're operating manually today because they see this gap to automate from where they are. And all there are almost 28,000 fulfillment centers in the US. We actually commissioned a study to kind of understand this market a little better. And through this research and our interfacing with the warehouses one on one, we understand that out of the 28,000 warehouses out there, hardly about 6,000 warehouses have automation of any kind. And what makes automation difficult in these brownfield warehouses is the fact that there is a lot of work that needs to be done just to make the warehouse automation ready, be it infrastructure, be it permits, be it. So there's a lot of cost that goes in even before the automation system is brought in. And that's prohibitive. And in addition to that, there's also the cost of warehouses having downtime when automation systems come in. So all of these have prevented warehouses which are running and operating from adopting automation. And that's where we see that though studies have shown that there'll be a large uptake of automation, the adoption of automation is lagged behind what has been predicted would be the uptake. And we see that as something that needs to be changed for the industry to evolve better and meet the demand.
Very interesting there, and out of 28,000, so it's only 6,000 have had some kind of automation involvement in their operations. I'm curious for that remainder, are you seeing that there is a desire to do automation, but maybe there's some type of barrier that's keeping them from doing that, or is it a lack of awareness? What are you seeing from that gap that hasn't touched automation yet?
But there is inherently an urge to automate. I think there is a lot of interest in automation. It is actually like crossing the chasm between interest to actual investment, where we are seeing a majority of the drop offs. And primarily, this is driven by one, like a hesitation to go through so much of a change. So automation is a journey, right? And you need adoption, you need buy-in from everybody who's part of the warehouse. It's not just top down. There has to be buy-in at middle management. There has to be buy-in by the actual people who are running the warehouse. And 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 you need systems that are easy to use. You need systems that are flexible, that can go in and not really change everything that's out there, but make change a lot more palatable. You want people to feel that they can work with the system. You don't want the system to be too prohibitive, too scary. You want people to be able to adopt this without having to do a lot of changes, be it to their process, be it to how things are functioning, be it to the infrastructure itself. I mean, there are warehouses where we've seen that people have spent like 20 years building infrastructure, and there's a sense of ownership there. You don't want to rip and replace that infrastructure. You want to utilize whatever has been built, grow on that. And it's all of this that makes automation difficult. To get that buy-in across the board, to actually bring in a change and get everyone to be part of that change. It's not easy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I think that's such a great point there too about, they've invested in this infrastructure, right? And like you said, maybe it's been 20 years in the making of different iterations, and they own the real estate, and they've, built out this operation over time, and this, been in business for a long time, right? And all these things. And now, they have to rip things out and do it again, and or go get another facility and try and do that. It seems daunting, right, for the company to do that. And maybe there's some of that notion too of like, well, everything is working okay, do we really need to go and reinvent the wheel, or disrupt the whole operation to bring in this automation? So, but as you said, within trying to fit automation into that existing operation is also a challenge, right? In these brownfield operations. So if it's so challenging, right? Why did you decide to tackle this challenge? What did you see as the opportunity within these brownfield operations?
So great question. So some would view this as opportunity. The way we at Cartesian viewed it was that there's this huge underserved segment, brownfield warehouses that are crying out for automation. There's a huge retrofit market, like we're mentioning. There are many warehouses out there that need to get serviced, and it's a large market. It's like a $20 billion plus market opportunity to actually automate these warehouses. And the way we went about doing this, we adopted a design first approach to ensure that the changes that need to be brought into a warehouse when bringing in this omni rack robotic platform is palatable. And that's where our robots actually go in and fit into bot parts that are fit in between existing racking systems. And we can actually go in and fit into any standard racking system. We don't, we are not constrained by a make. We can work with any make of racks, and we don't require any upgrades to infrastructure. So if there is any fire suppression, for example, that's in place, we can work around that. If there are any physical constraints, we can work around that both on the hardware and on the software. There's no floor prep that's required, which is a huge structural change. I mean, if you want to even bring in an automation through an AGV or an AMR, that requires you to have the floor preparation. And we can go in there and bring in automation without floor prep. So the fact that we can do this without any infrastructure changes means that it's pretty much permitless with respect to implementation. And we've seen that permits can be long drawn. It can take weeks and sometimes even months to get permits, and it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
So it's all of this that kind of makes the Cart Plus platform different. And one last thing with respect to the hardware itself is that we can actually go in where what we've seen is that a lot of the brownfield warehouses have short mezzanines, manual pick mods that are like 7 feet in height or 9 feet in height. And most of the ASRS systems out there in the market require a minimum height of about 15 feet to be deployed. But we can actually go in even in like a 7 feet plus kind of environment and deploy an automation system. And obviously, we can go deploy in 40 plus feet with high bay racking. And that the fact that we can handle this whole range without much changes to infrastructure makes this an attractive thing to look at. And that is where brownfield warehouses are a lot more comfortable talking to us.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, that sounds amazing, right? I mean, being able to go on to any type of racking and avoid permits, definitely. I mean, that's a huge one, I'll say, because I've been through those processes before when trying to do projects, just adding a little bit of racking, like even still waiting on the permit and everything in some of these smaller towns that are now like become huge warehouse hubs, right? The infrastructure of the town inspectors and things did not expand with the number of warehouses that are now around, so it can take time, as you mentioned there. And so very interesting to be able to apply this to what's already existing in place. So now I guess tell us a little bit about what does this solution look like itself? You're putting sort of a shuttle system on the racking. What does that kind of look like to give, I guess, the listeners like a kind of a visual idea?
So our solution has both a hardware and a software element to it. So we actually go in between existing racking structures and put in our bot paths and our lifts, and the bots then run on these bot paths and lifts in XYZ direction. Our bots can scissor to intermediate levels in between bot paths as well. And the the software is actually the central nervous system that's kind of tying this all together. And we have a layered microservices based architecture in our software stack, and we have about three layers of software that we primarily provide as part of the Carte solution. At the topmost level, we have the Carte Cloud, which is like a thin WMS, which talks to the customer ERP, that talks to the customer order management systems, and manages the complete manages the complete Carte Plus operations, in the sense that there is an orchestration engine that optimizes how the SKUs are stored. How do you decide which SKUs are stored, and how you place the SKUs within the system. So, and also how do you sequence the orders? Like while you have a WMS that's going to say batch the orders and hand it over, how do you actually sequence the orders to efficiently run these orders? So all of this is happens on the Cart Cloud. This is handed over to the Cart Edge, which handles the workflow execution, which optimizes tasks that are given to the bots. So information from this, it takes the information about the SKUs, about what orders need to get processed, breaks them down into tasks for the bots going around the system. It does the path planning for the bots, and we have some patented path planning algorithms that go into this layer to ensure that the bots always take the most optimal path. And then there's a PLC, CAC PLC, which is the layer which is much closer to the hardware, which actually controls the bots, which controls the hardware, takes the inputs from the sensor and makes it all work. And across all of these layers, there are learning algorithms that have been built in, which optimize the operations at different levels. And it's all of this that can kind of work in a seamless fashion, integrating with a software and hardware that's running at the customer location, that makes it all work as a productive, super efficient order fulfillment or a returns engine.
Very interesting. And so now bringing something like this in, right? Because you mentioned there's no infrastructure change really. I mean, it sounds like you need to put some tracks in place and things like that, which makes sense. But what does actually deploying like this look like for the operation? I mean, is there like how long does it take? What's the disruption? And I imagine obviously the amount of space that you want to automate and things, so, that makes it longer, right? But what does actually, from starting to deploy to, fully going live? I mean, what does that process look like, and what is kind of the timeline to make that happen?
It's super interesting that you're asking this. I mean, I'm currently at a customer location. I just came by to see our engineers installing this
Okay.
system at a customer location. And it's and what stands out is that we do a sub 6 week install, and actually we've to the date tracked to whatever has been the installation plan. So there is a mechanical installation, there is electrical and controls installation, and then we do a software installation. And the beauty is that a lot of the planning and the integration and testing happens prior to the actual install. So there's minimal disruption that happens at site. We install, I mean, when we plan a system, we actually have a digital twin that we build. So we have a patented digital physical twin called eCart Plus, which lets us virtually commission the complete system. And this actually runs off our tech stack. And this runs actual customer orders, albeit virtually, and pushes tasks to an operator for an operator to actually get the experience of how he would run the system. And we capture the business metrics, validate these business metrics, and then the customer can use this to confirm that he's actually getting benefit of the planned ROI before before the actual install happens. And our software stack itself is super flexible in the sense that it can integrate at different layers. I spoke to you about the multi-layered architecture that we have, and we can integrate at it with the customer WMS. We can integrate with the customer's WES. We can work with APIs. We can work with integration of TCP/IP. So we can our whole system is extremely configurable, and this allows for very easy integration, and a lot of the surprises that could be expected at site are planned for and recognized earlier, much earlier in the planning cycle, and addressed.
Interesting, interesting, and it sounds like you've really kind of thought about the rollout and how to do it in a way that's not so disruptive. So, I mean, when these things are going on, right? I mean, when the mechanical install is going on and some of the electrical is coming in, as you mentioned, I mean, do you have to stop operations, or can you continue while all of this is going on? Like, I mean, is there any time where you're down and not able to use the racking or pick and ship and do the activities you need to do to keep the business moving?
Not at all. So what we can do is we can actually install one aisle at a time. So we don't go in there, bring down the whole operation, and have like a silo where we bring in automation system and then it becomes usable. We can actually go in there and say, okay, now these aisles are having low running inventory. Give us these aisles, we'll automate these. Now place SKUs here, start using that, and then we kind of shift over and incrementally add more aisles to get automated. So that way the usage, the adoption becomes easier. The and inherently there is a fallback mechanism. We don't have any single points of failure, so ensure that the operations run smoothly even when it's just going live. So this has been a major comfort to the warehouses that we've been speaking to.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I think that's great to be able to have that phased approach where you're not having to shut everything down over a weekend or something and then turn it on and hope it all works on on one day again, or something like that. And being able to do that aisle by aisle, I think it makes a lot of sense to prevent a lot of that disruption. So now, who is like a good fit for this? I mean, I think obviously we've established like a brownfield operation, but is there a certain size, certain product type that really is a great fit for this solution? Who would you say is like the ideal customer here?
So we can work with totes and cases handling about 60 pounds of weight. Each of our bots can handle about 60 pounds of weight, which means that any small parts that can fit into is totes or cases is something that can be automated. And we've worked with use cases from different industry segments, and and typically we like to work with where at least about 10 to 15 items can be present in the tote, so that we just don't quickly keep replenishing the system, and we actually spend time fulfilling. And typically we go after warehouses like that, servicing at least about 7,000, about 700 to about 1,000 orders per day, because that's what we feel would be a minimum requirement to bring in an automation system under which you can actually service the orders manually. But today, like any many of the large brands, any of the third party logistics companies, I forgot to mention, but our system is inherently multi tenant, which means that you could actually aggregate your volumes across different customers to fulfill orders and reach this requirement for volumes for automation. And and if there is one customer that's bringing in, say, 300 orders, one customer bring in like 500 orders, you can kind of aggregate all of the capacity and automate the complete system. And our system will inherently separate out the SKUs, track them, ensure there's no mix up, the traceability is maintained. So it's built considering the a user in mind, easy adoption and usability in mind.
That's very interesting, and it's very interesting that you said it's inherently kind of built for multi tenet, because I think that's, for 3PL, oftentimes that's some of the challenges around automation solutions is how do you find a solution that's going to be flexible between different clients, and it's hard to, justify getting a solution for a client that's on like maybe just a 2-year contract and be able to see the benefits of that, and you don't know what's going to happen after 2 years. Are they going to stay, or you're going to get a totally different client the solution doesn't even work for now? So I think that's a very interesting point to highlight there. So very interesting to learn about this, and kind of dive into how you've approached this, and really understanding how you're trying to solve this challenge for brownfield operations to bring in automation that sounds like can be flexible and not too disruptive to what they have already built and they already have existing. So very interested to continue to see how this evolves, and how you solve this challenge for specifically that brownfield market, because I think that is certainly a market that needs some more love from the automation perspective, for sure. So really appreciate you coming on the show, and talking to us about the Cartesian Kinetics and the Carte Plus system. If people are interested in learning more, or taking a look at what the solution looks like, what's the best place to do that at?
So you can visit our website www.cartesiankinetics.com. We have a LinkedIn page. I'd be happy to kind of tag you if you can present you can add a link to the podcast if people want to reach out to us. More than happy to kind of talk to them more. We also have a email ID that we can probably give that we can share, which is simple sales at cartesiankinetics.com. So we have a team of people raring to work with you, help solution your right sized thing that'll make your warehouse more efficient. So love to talk.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely share all that information at thenewwarehouse.com, as well as in the show notes here, so people can easily find it. So, Veena, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's been great fun talking to you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.